we'll just launch right into it with case studies. We have organized this presentation loosely from the unsanctioned, more guerrilla tactics and their use and eventual adoption to the formal and more sanctioned city-led tactics that are leading to demonstrable change on the ground in many cities. So to start, we'll talk about a citizen-led movement called DIY crosswalks. As you can see from this image, we've got 4 examples, but there are a high number of examples of citizens moving forward with improving the walkability of their neighborhoods by striping or painting their own crosswalks. Now, of course, this brings up a whole slew of issues around liability, but what we're really demonstrating here is the need for citizens. The citizens feel the need and are compelled to make those changes themselves, which to us indicates that there's a lack of response, perhaps, with city government or, say, county government or even state government in terms of departments of transportation and implementing the most basic of pedestrian infrastructure, which is the crosswalk. One example I like to point out is on the lower left is a resident in the Hamden neighborhood of Baltimore who, after his street was recently repaved, waited months and months for the crosswalk and striping to come in. Now this brought great frustration for him, and he took it upon himself to take the action. And what's really interesting is that his city councilor quickly supported his guerrilla fly-by-night work and was able to leverage not only the political support but the city to come in quickly and actually make that striping permanent. So it actually led to that real change, which is oftentimes the intent, of course, of the guerrilla crosswalk, is that the activists who are engaging in this behavior want very much their short-term and even temporary washable solution to be made permanent. And you can see from this image, obviously, that many neighbors tend to support and engage in their fellow citizens taking the leadership role to create their own crosswalks. But this presents a real challenge, and we understand this. This article from Streets Blog highlights a guerrilla crosswalk that was painted in Vallejo, California. Now, the person who engaged in this activity was arrested. There's only a few different examples I know of where somebody actually was arrested for this act of civil disobedience, but it presents this challenge of all this activity and interest in perhaps doing things in an unsanctioned manner. Where is the city's responsibility in that? Have they abdicated responsibility by not creating safer streets? And is that why you get the response of the citizen painting their own crosswalk? And so how can we find a system where the city can help take this kind of activity and quickly respond to it and or create a platform for change so that citizens can more quickly identify needs in their neighborhoods so the city can, with their resources, respond to that need in an efficient manner? Another activity, also citizen-led, is chairbombing, which is the idea of, in this case, using discarded shipping pallets to create chairs and dropping them into public spaces. Most consistently, that would be sidewalks. And this activity took place, as one example is from New York, but there are many, many examples as well. You could Google research around chairbombing the world over. You can see here the idea is to simply deconstruct those pallets, reconstruct them as chairs, and of course drop them into public space. Now this particular example demonstrates a need in front of a coffee shop which had no outdoor seating, even though there tended to be queues outside of the coffee shop, and people would get their coffee and have no place to sit and drink it and enjoy it. So these folks took it upon themselves to build the chairs and put them next to this coffee shop, immediately filling the need. And you can see a video of this online that demonstrates how quickly people look around, see that the chairs are there, and quickly sit down on them. And here is an example of that same coffee shop where the restaurant or the coffee shop got the hint and decided to put out their own benches in front of the store. So that's a very small scale, short-term action that led to permanent change, or at least the daily change of putting benches out in front of the coffee shop, what we call street seats. Okay, one of my favorite citizen-led tactics is a project called Walk Raleigh, which has actually transformed itself into a much larger national social enterprise called Walk Your City. Now this is a project led by Matt Tamasulu, who was a grad student in 2012 at NC State. And Matt, looking at the city's comprehensive plan, which called for more pedestrian wayfinding and pedestrian amenities, decided to take it upon himself to what we call daylight that plan. And so he designed and hung up his own wayfinding signs in around 30 locations in downtown Raleigh. And of course, he did this in the middle of the night, what looks to be quite a rainy night, and he did it illegally. But the response to this project was pretty phenomenal and very overwhelmingly positive. In fact, within about a week's time, the BBC had covered this story. It made national media, both sanctioned corporate media, but also blogs and lots of informal media were covering this initiative. And so it really hit a nerve around this kind of guerrilla unsanctioned activity and tactical urbanism. And because of all the positive media, I believe, that Raleigh received, the signs remained for several weeks. And then once the project really ran its course and had a positive impact, the city eventually came to Matt and said, can you please take down the signs? We don't want to throw them away, but if you want to keep them, please go and take them down. And so he concurred, and the city also said to him that we'll probably be calling you in a week's time. So Matt said, okay. And the city council met and decided to adopt the tactic as a public education campaign, as you can see from this article, and treat it like a pilot program, and returned to Matt and said, can you please go hang the signs back up onto the street poles? So that's a very quick turnaround for an unsanctioned activity that then received a very positive, supportive response from the Raleigh City Council to make the project a bit more permanent. This has gone on to help Matt, again, like I mentioned, found a social enterprise called Walk Your City, where you can literally download now his template and customize the signs for your neighborhood or your event, your block party, etc. It's a great example of tactical urbanism. And really these projects, the ones that are successful, go to scale, as we say. So you can see images here from many cities, and this is just a small selection of cities that have been using the Walk Your City signs for pedestrian wayfinding. And of course, they've been used for bikeways as well. One of these great projects.